Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win, or you find a way to lose. Hopefully everyone is doing well out there. I am doing pretty good myself. Had a pretty good day so far. Was out fishing. My son and I had a ball. The other three boys, they didn't want to roll. The big boy out there playing basketball as usual. So we're back and we in the seat, so let's drop a couple videos. Then I got to run errands as always, man. Busy. Anyway, was it worth it? Greed greater than greatness, or should greatness be greater than greed? The Eubank Jr. story, man, that's the question. Was the money worth the humiliation? Now, I want to just make sure I say this. Eubank Jr., I like Eubank Jr., man. So you probably know I'm a little biased towards him, but I respect what he did. He and Conor, both of them did in that first fight. I respect what they both did in the second fight. I said repeatedly, I don't think they should rematch. I just thought it was all bad. Didn't matter who won, didn't matter who lost. There's nowhere in the world they could re-engineer what they organically created in that first fight. You just can't create that kind of magic, okay? But it happened, and we saw what happened, so it is what it is. But when you're going after payday, sometimes there's a price. Chris Eubank Jr. has always been a fighter who walked the tightrope between ambition and pride. The rematch with Conor Benn was marked as revenge, restoration, and settling a family business, kind of for both sides, but more for Conor Benn. But there was some revenge on Chris Eubank Jr.'s side, just how he was treated in the first fight. But deep beneath that promotion was a reality that Eubank Jr. couldn't escape. This was the biggest payday of his career. Reports circling that the spot, let me tell you something. There's a lot of rumors, right? But the reports were circulating that he earned anywhere between $10 and $22 million. Far more than anything he ever touched as a middleweight, super middleweight, and far more than most champions ever make in their whole career. Remember, Eubank Jr. has never had a title, neither has Conor Benn. And while fighters always say legacy matters more than money, the truth is that legacies don't buy property, don't secure families, don't protect futures. The Benn rematch did all of that for Conor Benn and Eubank Jr. The painful part is that it also cost him something far more than delicate. Cost him his aura. You know, we're always talking about fighters and the aura of invincibility. Eubank Jr. didn't have an aura of invincibility, but he had an aura around him, and that was sacrifice for the Wu-Tang Cream. Now, before the rematch, many fans remembered Eubank Jr. as a warrior with an iron chin, a fighter with pride, a man who believed he could walk through anyone smaller than him. But the moment the rematch was signed under similar weight-cutting circumstances, fans felt anxiety. They watched him again shrink into a version of himself that looked more dehydrated than dangerous. He did look a little better this time than the last time, but the bottom line is he was severely dehydrated. And yet, the money was too big to walk away from. The risk was massive, but so was the reward. So what Eubank Jr. gambled was nothing less than how the boxing world would remember him. And I'm going to tell you, for me, I understand, but I still don't like the fact that the fight took place. But I could understand, you know, you're getting paid that kind of money, but it ain't worth your health. But let me finish my outline, right? But the silent killer and the major contributor that should get a thank you from Conor Benn is the weight cut. In boxing, weight is physics, and physics is unforgiving. For years, Eubank Jr.'s strength was his durability, his chin, his engine, his ability to absorb punishment. But when you drain your water, you drain your resilience. When you drain glycogen, you drain power. When you drain the mind and body to meet a contracted number, you lose the parts of yourself that made you elite. And that's what he did. And the problem is this, nobody wants to hear excuses after a loss. And he didn't make any. His promoter was trying to, but he stopped that with the quickness. You know what I'm saying? Fans don't care about the science when the smaller man, knocks you down, damn near knocks you out. He was out on his feet. So fans don't care about that. History doesn't write, but he was drained. History writes, you either win or you lose. And in this case, Eubank Jr. was beaten. That's what happened. Eubank Jr. stepped into that ring physically depleted, but he entered publicly undefeated mentally until Conor Benn hit him with the bing bings. The knockout didn't just drop his body, and I'm calling it a knockout because he was out. He was gone on his feet. They should have stopped the fight. But it is what it is, right? But it didn't drop him, to where he couldn't get back up. But it did drop his reputation, okay? Now, what made this worse is that many fans believe he didn't need to go back down again. They believe he entered the rematch already crippled by the scale, which kind of takes away a little bit from Conor Benn, but also makes Eubank Jr. look like he was putting greed over greatness. So why did he really take the fight? I mean, there are three reasons, and all three matter, okay? The first reason was the cha-ching-ching, financial security. It's my little man out there blasting his iPad. But the first reason was just for the Wu-Tang cream, financial security. Fighters lie to the camera, not to themselves. They know their bodies don't last forever. They know one injury can erase decades. Tens of millions were on the table. That kind of check makes men reconsider risk, especially men who are already in the back half of their career like Eubank Jr. Now, the second reason was pride. He took the fight because, secondly, pride. Eubank Jr. could not accept the narrative that he was saved by the referee or he was caught off guard or, kind of almost beat by the smaller man in the first fight. Fighters who come from famous families, especially sons of legends, they can't stomach certain headlines. And although he won and he received a lot of credit for the win, but there were still some people saying that, that Conor Benn deserved the victory. So it wasn't just that he was in there fighting Ben. I really think he was in there thinking about his father's expectations and thinking about the public, kind of mocking how he was hurt several times in the first fight. And it was the idea that win, although it was a huge win for him, maybe he still felt like he was defined by a bad night, by a bad weight cut. And the rematch represented a chance for him to rewrite history and go in there off another weight cut, maybe less headache entering the fight with a new team, and show that Conor Benn, who is the quote-unquote smaller guy, even me at my worst, you can't beat me with enough time to safely cut the weight. And I think that has something to do with it too. And the third reason was just his identity. Eubank Jr. has always wanted to prove his own man. His father warned him. His trainers warned him. Even sections of the public warned him. The rematch was not just a fight. It was just for him, I think, like rebellion. It was his attempt to prove that, hey, I'm going to steer my own ship, get this Wu-Tang cream. And unfortunately, in the rematch, the ship sank, and he seemed to have sank with it. And as a result, he has a loss now to Conor Benn, who's someone he probably would have never lost to. Go ahead. Someone he probably would have never lost to. But it happened. So now, boom, come down, humiliation factor. The loss wasn't just a defeat, man. To a lot of people, it was a humiliation because of how he went down in that last round. And he was, no kidding, chest to canvas, ass in the air like at a Diddy party. It wasn't just physical. It was psychological. When the smaller man hurts the bigger man bodies go down, but his reputation goes with it. So overnight, Eubank Jr. went from the larger, stronger athlete to the meme of the day. And memes don't disappear. Memes become part of a fighter's legacy. Now, I will say this. There were a couple of rounds where he actually mustered enough strength to let his hands go and push Conor Benn back. And Conor Benn cannot fight going backwards. at all. It was all Eubank Jr. And if he had, let's say his battery was at 15%, I think he came in the car, and I think he came into the fight as an electric vehicle with 5% charge on the battery. And he was just trying to make it from point A, the first round, to point B, the last round. He wasn't trying to speed. He wasn't trying to exert any unnecessary battery life to where he crashed mid-rounds. And that's why he performed what he did. But there were a couple of times where he put his foot on the gas, and he had huge success. Conor Benn can't fight going back, and Eubank Jr. was touching him up. So for Conor Benn in his next fight, anybody watch the fight, just push him back and you win. You knock him out. He can't fight going backwards. But the problem is, the loss is going to haunt him. And many people watched that and they said, you know what? Forget the weight cut. He's just been doing this too long. He can't pull the trigger. He's not the guy who beat Arthur Abraham. You know, he's not the guy who got in there and beat the Gale, was it he fought? But at the end of the day, a lot of people feel he's not going to be the same. Not physically. I know psychologically is my biggest concern for him. But sometimes things change when you go and you get that check, and that check hits the bank, and he sees this, whatever it is, 10 to 22 million drop in there. That shit is good medicine. I just think every fighter has a moment where their confidence gets tested. Some recover, others never do. Eubank Jr. seems to be a pretty resilient guy. But people now whisper that Eubank Jr. may have crossed the line from confident to broken. It's not fair, but it's real, and fighters hear every whisper. So was the money worth it? This is the entire tragedy, all right? The answer depends on what you value more. If you value honor, legacy, and reputation, then no, the money was not worth it. His family name took a hit. His chin took a hit. His pride took a hit. He'll forever carry the title of the Eubank who chased money over greatness. But if you value financial freedom, generational wealth, and long-term security, then yes, the money was absolutely worth it. He has now earned enough to walk away forever, buy estates, invest properly, and secure his post-boxing life. As long as he stays away from all that gambling. The trade-off is painful, but it's permanent. You know what I'm saying? Eubank Jr. chose financial stability over legacy. Pretty damn simple. And many fighters do. The only difference is most don't get exposed for it in front of the entire world. So where does he go from here? I don't know, man. I mean, it's on paper. I don't know what he's going to do. But it's a big question. Does he continue fighting? Does he chase one more big payday? Does he walk away? One thing about Eubank Jr., you know, he's going to do what he wants. But I do think if he wants to protect whatever remains of his legacy, retiring now is not cowardice. It's strategy. You know, many fans believe he's taken psychological damage, and that cannot be reversed. Losing in that fashion to a smaller rival twice leaves scars that conditioning can't fix. There's also a physical danger. He's been knocked down multiple times in recent years. The signs of deterioration are appearing. Continuing at world level is risky. Fighters don't heal as they age. They just tend to break. Especially when you're taking wear and tear, and especially when you have very violent sparring sessions. So there's one fight, I think, that would get his juices flowing, and he may take it. And it may be all bad, or it may work out. I don't know, but should he fight Canelo? You know, Canelo's looking to return to the ring. You know, Canelo's not trying to get in there with a killer. He's going to pick the fights he wants. Canelo and Eubank Jr. will be huge in the UK. Canelo wants to fight in the UK. I think Turk Al-Sheik's going to push Canelo another route, but on paper, it's a massive fight. On paper, it's a huge payday. On paper, it's a redemption moment. Could you imagine if Chris Eubank Jr. comes back, fights Canelo, and puts the bing-bings on him? You know, his pops is going to be that Rastafari, righteousness, Selassie. Chris Eubank Sr. will lose his mind if his son beat Canelo. Because remember, he said his son couldn't beat Canelo. Remember, that's what he said. But some people say in reality, Eubank Jr. wouldn't survive Canelo at 168. They said no way. Canelo is compact, powerful, patient, experienced, vicious to the body. Eubank Jr. doesn't have the defensive technique or the explosive engine to keep Canelo off of him at this stage of his career. The fight would be dangerous. It would also likely be one-sided. The money would be huge, make, I don't know, another one of those, huge paydays. Probably not as much, but probably make a little 15 million or something. But the beating could be career-ending. But remember this, Canelo, Eubank Jr. at 168 would be different. He wouldn't be dehydrated. So you just don't know how that fight would go. But he relied more on his athleticism. Eubank Jr. was more like a Roy Jones, very athletic. Jaron Ennis is very athletic. He's not necessarily a textbook, highly skilled boxer puncher. A lot of athleticism, a lot of things they do that you just can't teach. But a lot of that is gone now with that age, and it seems like his legs are gone a little bit. But fighting Canelo, it's a huge risk. But if you won, it'd be a huge payday. But if he gets in there and it doesn't go his way, it could be career-ending. Then the other question is, all right, well, if it's not Canelo, maybe he fights Hamza Shiraz. Let me tell you something. Fighting Hamza Shiraz, hey, yo, hold your horses. Let's not take it to the stupid. You better leave Hamza Shiraz alone. That shit is a terrible idea. How do you say terrible in Spanish? Terrible? That shit is el idea terrible, or however you say it. Leave Hamza Shiraz alone. Young, fresh, improving, huge for the. Well, actually, Hamza Shiraz is, he's at 168. He's huge. He's a problem, man. He hits extremely hard too, and he has no emotional ties to Eubank Jr. So Shiraz would see him as a name to add to his resume. He'd jump on that fight, and he's a stepping stone, and he would knock him out. So a statement knockout just waiting to happen. So if Eubank Jr. fights Shiraz, he risks being the man prospects are built off, and he doesn't want to be no gatekeeper. He doesn't want to be no stepping stone for anybody, the springboard for anyone's career. And I don't want to see him exit the sport after getting viciously knocked out by Hamza Shiraz. So, to me, the smart choice, just retire. Retirement might be the most honorable path. He's got the money, he's got the fame, he's nothing left to prove. Continuing to fight only exposes him to further humiliation and physical danger. Behind the scenes, many fighters who care about Eubank Jr. believe his confidence has been destroyed. That happens when you get your ass beat like that. But if that's true, continuing is not bravery, it's self-harm. So Eubank Jr. could leave now, head held high enough with multi-million-dollar security, and transition into the, punditry, business, or promotion, whatever he wants to do. He's charismatic, very articulate, and he can build a career outside the ring. But he's going to be busy with them twins and his brother's son, who he takes care of and looks out for. So if I had anything to tell him, I'd be like, man, don't force nothing. Focus on your sons and your brother, little man. You got the dough. Just relax. You know what I mean? Take that money, invest it, reinvest that shit at 10%. If you just made $22 million, right? Take your little $2.2 million a year and just chill. What kind of lifestyle you got to live when you blowing more than, who the hell living a lifestyle when you blowing over $1 million a year? But some people do. Anyway, I just think if he continues fighting, the risk of permanent damage, physically, psychologically, I just think it increases with every round. He just one round away for something really, really bad happening. And he leaves behind a good legacy, though. That's one thing for sure. To have fought in his father's shadow and to have stepped out of it and to be taken serious as a fighter, that's huge. That's huge, man. But well, one thing is he won't be remembered as his father's equal, but he'll never be remembered as a champion of the era, but he'll be remembered as a man who fought for respect and actually earned it. He's a man who fought for money as well, and he fought to protect his name, even when the world turned against him. So he fought for a reason. But at the same time, some are going to sit back and look at this one fight and say, Actually, the 2 fights. They say he sold his legacy for cash. But then there's some who will balance out the argument and say, you know what, he secured his future. And you know what, man, both can be true. But at the end of the day, for me, I didn't want to see it. Y'all know that. I didn't want it. The first fight was beautiful. Conor Benn, they both had a lot of respect, and they still got a lot of respect coming out of the second fight. But it seemed like people were just rushing to come and say bad shit about Eubank Jr. They did it for Conor Benn in the first. I didn't. And I'm not doing it now. But the ending isn't tragic. Story's sad, but the ending isn't tragic. He walks away rich, healthy enough and free to choose the next chapter of his life. Many fighters don't even get that. So the question now is whether he closes the book or keeps fighting until the pages tear. And, that's what you don't want for Eubank Jr. to do. Anyway, man, my question is, was it worth it? Because I saw he was walking around out there in England after he beat Conor Benn that first fight. They're treating that man like Obama. They loved him. All over him. He lost now. I think he should still get the same love and admiration because most people know that wasn't an even fight. The first one wasn't even either. A weight cut is horrible. Horrible. And what he did, he should have never been at 160. He'd never been at 160. But he did it. He got the money. And let's hopefully he has his health. And 10 years down the road, he'll be okay. Anyway, y'all keep cool. You know what I'm in.